Adam John Holioake, born the 5th of September 1971 in Melbourne, Australia. I think you grew up in a former mining town of Ballarat. Tell us about growing up, Adam.
Yeah, well, I had a funny growing up. I was all over the place. I mean, most notably, Ballarat was probably the only place that I stayed in for longer than 6 months. But we were basically nomadic, and my parents travelled around in a caravan all around Europe, and eventually ended up back in Ballarat when I was about 10.
Sorry, when you say hang on, you can't just tease us like that. What were your parents doing? I mean, how did they sustain themselves? What were they doing in a caravan in Europe?
Well, my dad's he's an engineer, and his job takes him all around the world. He's been pretty successful in that, and he had some long service leave, and he just took off in a caravan around Europe. And
where did you go, Adam?
Traveling bug. I think we were, I mean, I was 2 at the time, so apparently. We went all through Spain, and I think we did the whole lot. Italy, the whole. I hear my parents talking about it a lot. Obviously, I can't remember from that age. My sort of first memories are in Ballarat, actually. So that's probably where that.
Tell us about Ballarat then.
Yeah, well, Ballarat's it's a small mining town. It's it's pretty a bit of a country town. It's just about an hour and a half, 2 hours outside Melbourne. And I went to school there. My parents were travelling, and they decided that it was time for me to settle down and try and get some sort of education. So I went to a boarding school there in Ballarat at the age of 10, and I was a little bit younger than what you're supposed to be, but my parents were sort of keen on me getting a good education. And I ended up in this small country town, and then from there went to England. But obviously coming from a place like Ballarat to London was a huge culture change.
I mean, let me just say that the family unit was your dad, John, your mum, Daria, who I think is half Australian, half Indonesian, hence your handsome looks. You just one brother, Ben, who we'll talk about, of course, a great deal in this programme?
Yep, just one brother and a sister. My sister, Ebony.
There we have the full
She's
lineup.
The quiet achiever.
What does she do?
Well, she's basically, poor girl, led her life as a kid. She's the youngest of us all. She was just dragged around cricket games and rugby games and all sorts of other sport, and she was just the person that just basically just got dragged around, poor thing. But she's unbelievably the only Holioake that's been any sort of intellectual. So she went on to uni and was pretty successful there. Tell us about
you get transplanted as an 11-year-old. I mean, it's a tremendous wrench, surely, to go from Australia, for good, bad, or indifferent, to Weymouth in Surrey. I think your family were based, and as you say, in the environs of London. Tell us about the culture shock of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you sort of touched on the fact I'm Indonesian, but I was probably in my school in Ballarat. I was the darkest kid by a long way, and I was sort of basically ended up in a fight basically every day for being called chalk wedge or licorice stick. It was it's a fairly a lot of the country kids went to school at the same school, and albeit they were good guys, it was fairly rough. It was they're good. It's a good school. I don't want to talk anything bad about the school, but it was just the way it is. It was a bit brasher than when I went to a beautiful public school in Weybridge. And when I turned up there, everybody was. I remember the English accents, very well spoken and everything. And I thought, these people have got to be joking, talking like this, haven't they? I must be on a TV show or something. So it was a massive culture shock. And then I turned up there, and I wasn't the whitest kid, and I wasn't the darkest kid. It was just probably the first time I actually just settled in somewhere and went a little bit under the radar.
And in all of this, there's a sporting background, I think, in your family, and you were good at sports, particularly cricket. I mean, how quickly did you establish yourself as a good young cricketer here in England?
I think I pretty much established myself as, I'm a humble guy, as you get to sort of hear over this show. I established myself in every sport when I first went there. I was a man child. I just grew up. I was big at the age of 12, and I remember coming there and just being a lot bigger than the other kids. And so every sport I did, I think I was just bigger and stronger and developed quicker than those kids. So cricket was just one of the sports I did, and I wasn't particularly better than anything else. But one thing I do remember about first coming to England, my very first game of cricket was a Surrey under-12s trial. I went down to the nets at Guildford, and they obviously saw that I was big and I could bowl fast, and I went down there, and literally the first kid I bumped into was Mark Butcher.
Wow.
He obviously went on to play for England, and I remember this kid. He turned up and he had all the kit. He had, his dad was obviously a professional player and handed him all the stuff down. He had sunglasses, he had everything. And I remember it rained, and I had never played on a turf pitch before. We've just played on AstroTurf out in Australia, and I ran up and couldn't stand up, so I just took my shoes off and bowled barefoot. And I just remember he always talks about that to this day. And I'd bat without gloves on, and I was literally like a cowboy. And
wow.
He was this kid. It's just from a young age we became best mates, and but totally different. He grew up, with all the right stuff and all the gear, and I had no idea, basically. Yeah,
absolutely. And of course, we'll get on to you when you get onto your cricket career. Of course, you're now an all-rounder. You could bat, you could bowl, and all the rest of it. What stage did you decide to take cricket seriously? And why did you become a professional cricketer if you were so good at other sports? Could you have gone another route?
Yeah, I had an option to go plenty of other routes, actually. I mean, it was just the timing. It just turned out right. Rugby was my real love, and boxing, as you'll hear, obviously, as we go on. My parents have never been keen on the fighting, so I just found out I was good at it when I was in Ballarat, and I was fighting every second day, and I kept winning.
If only you could have stayed a couple more years when you became a man-child, then you could have been the best fighter in Ballarat as well.
Exactly. So I went down and I joined Woking Amateur Boxing Club when I got there, and I just went up through the age groups playing rugby. I played the South of England rugby and England junior rugby. So
what position, Adam?
I started up on the wing and played a bit in full-back and played a bit in the centres. So I had to go everywhere. I used to play county hockey as well. And
wow.
I was just big and athletic. So my brother was exactly the same. He I think he represented England in about 3 or 4 different sports, so he was just very talented.
This is shocking. We're having to import our sporting talent from Australia. That is just horrible.
Well, I don't know about that. It was just, we didn't really belong anywhere, and that's actually the first time we actually spent more than 18 months in one place was during those sort of sporting developmental years. So we probably learnt to play, although I'm and it sounds big-headed, but we were pretty naturally gifted sports people. But we actually got taught the finer arts of everything in England. So, it's an interesting one.
Okay,
and how I become a professional cricketer was I was just, as I said, minding my own business, doing sport, all my sports. And then one day I had the dormitory master came to me and said, Ian Gregg wants to come down and talk to you. And I was like, who the hell's Ian Gregg? And he was obviously the captain of Surrey at the time. And he came down and he said, right, we want to offer you a contract to play professional cricket with Surrey. And I was like, firstly, what's a contract? And secondly, what do I have to do? So I had no idea. I just wasn't headed in that direction. So,
well,
I said, I've got to ask my dad.
Surrey County Cricket Club has a rich history in the English game. They won 7 consecutive championships during the 1950s. What kind of club did you find, though, when you went there as a late teenager to start your professional career?
Yeah, no, it was, it's an amazing club. Everybody down there is, so keen for success. And I think that when I first got there, we were just trying too hard. But, we had people like Alex Stewart around who was just totally focused on us being successful as a club. So I came in as a 16, 17-year-old, and I was a bit wide-eyed and, very raw when I first came there. So I just sat back the first few years. I had to do a qualifying period before I was eligible to play in the first team, and I kind of just sat back and watched things. And as you probably gathered, I was pretty raw kid at that stage. Mm-hmm. So just basically tried to stay out of trouble and keep my head down and just practice and hopefully be ready when I qualified.
I mean, you talked earlier on about being a fast bowler, or quite a fast bowler when you first came over, and of course you can also bat. At this stage, when you're getting ready to make your debut in 1993 for Surrey, what did you decide to be? Were you going to be a bowler, a batsman, or were you always going to be an all-rounder, Adam?
No, mate. Funnily enough, I was a tear-away fast bowler.
Really?
I could literally just run up and wang the ball down there. There was not much thought went into it. As I sort of alluded to earlier, I was a big, strong kid, and that was as much as I had to do to be successful. obviously turned professional, that doesn't work. I then had a really bad back injury. I had double stress fracture in my back, and we didn't pick up on it, and I just carried on trying to play, and basically got to the point where I was told, you're never going to bowl again. So by the back specialist in Harley Street, and that you've got a year basically out of the game. So I went and practiced batting. At that stage, I was literally the obligatory number 11 batsman, field at fine leg and bowl fast. And during that time, I went away and worked on batting because I had no other option. I couldn't bowl.
Yeah.
And sort of turned myself into a guy who could bat a bit. I was still deemed as a lower order batsman, probably. Like I said, I made my debut as a bowler and batted at number 7. And when I got my 100, I got 100 on debut.
Hey.
So it was like, all of a sudden I was like, hang on, I might be all right at this.
Let me just remind people that was early in the 1993, late in the 1993 season in August. You made your first appearance against Derby, and you're absolutely right. You made 123 batting at 7, and that must have opened people's eyes.
Well, it opened my eyes. I was like, hey, I didn't think I was capable of this. So I'd always been told, it's like one of those things. You always get told, oh, you're a fast bowler, and concentrate on that. All of a sudden, I scored 100 on debut, and I was like, wow, I might be okay at this. And then from then on, I just carried on improving for each year on year. So I was given, I think that just more than anything, it just showed people that once you've done it once, you can do it again. So the club then started taking me seriously as a batsman, and probably more importantly, I started taking myself seriously as a batsman. And
also, you did, let's be honest, you did become an all-rounder, because the days of the tearaway fast bowling were obviously behind you, but I don't know how you did it, but you turned yourself into what's the word I'd use? A very handy medium-paced bowler, yeah?
Well, yeah, the speed was gone. My back was sort of troubled me throughout my career. Unbelievably, it hasn't stopped me from doing anything else other than bowling fast, so... it's just a strange injury that with the way it worked, and I had to sort of find, when I realised I couldn't bowl fast. I'm not the tallest bloke in the world. I'm just under 6 foot, so to be successful as an out and out fast bowler, there's been many times I've sat back and thanked God for that back injury, because I wouldn't have made it as a bowler. So that's it was sort of a blessing in disguise.
Your progress once you got into the Surrey team was pretty good. In 1994, you had your first full season. In 1995, you won your county cap. It also made a very, very fast 50 in one-day cricket against Yorkshire. In fact, I think it was the fastest we'd ever seen in this country. Surrey was still not super successful, and but this came to a kind of end in 1995. There was a special general meeting. And I think because you'd finished 12th in the county championship, do you remember that meeting and what was said? Because I think it's one of the seeds get sown for the amazing success that the team and yourself enjoy in subsequent years.
No, I don't. I've read about it.
Go on.
To set the picture straight, I'm just a dead set getting in trouble every weekend. I was, I'd go out and get in punch-ons, and I remember one particular night I was out with 3 of the guys from the cricket team, and I got in a massive fight in the pub and broke my hand, and I was given warnings by the club, look, fight anymore, and you're going to have your contract torn up. So I don't even know I didn't even know what an annual general... I don't know, I was an angry young man. I'm the most chilled out dude in the world now, but back then
I can hear that, yeah. And I can't imagine you standing up in a fight in a pub and starting a row, to be honest.
I never started one. I never ever started them. I just used to finish them, mate. It was just I just never backed down from anything. So if someone came up and wanted to start getting aggro with me, I was like, okay, well, I like fighting, so let's have a fight. So I never particularly got angry or anything like that. It's just it's been something that I've always enjoyed doing. I don't get particularly upset or angry about it. It's just something I kind of enjoy doing. So
well, whatever. We'll hear more about your boxing later on the show. But whatever happened at that meeting in 1995, Surrey started to definitely improve. In '96 they finished 3rd in the championship. You won the Sunday League, and you were the Player of the Year. I guess by that stage you must feel you're a properly established professional cricketer. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Those years, 95, 96 were. They were strange years. I think one of the main things I remember from those years is we were sat there and we were complaining and always moaning about our England players like Alec and Thorpe being taken away, and we didn't really have any identity as a team. We were just, was wanting these guys to be there to win us all the competitions.
Right.
And it's sort of those years where we sort of, we said, we've got to man up here, and we've got to, we've got to we can play. We're going to need those guys. And they're bonus when they're around. They're world-class players. But, we've got to man up, and we've got to take some responsibility. And, we did that during those years. And they were formative years, and we had a lot of arguing amongst ourselves and a lot of chest beating. And we were young dudes. And, those years were crucial to the success that we went on to achieve, because they put us in our pecking order, and a few people got told a few home truths, and I had to sort of grow up and stop being a lout, and and they were important years in the success to what happened with Surrey.
I mean, I was going to say, you also start, as you say, Alex Stewart is away on England duty very often. It's during those years you start to occasionally captain Surrey as well. From what you've been saying...
no one else was left.
I was going to say, are you natural captaincy material, Adam?
Mate, I was the last person left. Everyone else had to go. There was... we'd had Thorpe had to go. He was then going away for England. We had 4 or 5 guys who'd tried captaincy, and for various reasons it just hadn't worked. And it was sort of like, I remember Graham Clinton came and said, we're going to make you captain. I don't think anyone was more surprised than me, because here I was a year or so earlier being told, I'm going to be thrown out the club if I don't start behaving myself. And the next minute I'm asked to be captain. And I'd never been captain of any team ever growing up. I'd always just been like the crazy guy who just, who people just didn't mess around with and just let him get on and do his thing. All of a sudden, this is our last roll of the dice. Let's try this kid out. So, it went along, and then I just remember saying to the guy, I've always been a people person, and I said to the guys, I'm captain here, but we've got to do this together. This is not my team, this is our team. So, whatever we do, there's no point in fighting amongst ourselves anymore. I mean, let's just get on and try and win the game. So, that's sort of it. Started to turn around, and we were like, just honest with each other, I think, and I think it helped that we started to grow up, So
well, let me just say that your own form hadn't gone unnoticed. You'd made your one-day debuts in the summer of 1996 against Pakistan. You captained an England A team down to Australia, and but really started to motor when you became captain of Surrey in 1997. And made a tremendous impact in the one-day game in a series against Australia. I think I'm right in saying that England won the series with 3 wins, and you scored the winning run in each of the series, in each of those games in the series. But also that your brother, who is younger than you, that Ben had started to play not only for Surrey but also for England. And do you think having a younger brother in the team meant that you had to grow up as well as a captain and as a person?
Not really. I mean, he came to England a year or 2 earlier. That's probably coincided with me growing up, because he came to Surrey as a young 16-year-old, and I had to look after him, you know what I mean? So I was almost like his dad, So I had to I took him into my house and show him the ropes and look after him and make sure he was eating properly and stuff like that. So I had to grow up a bit, So I think that in that way it helped me. But he was a talented dude in his own right, and he didn't need any help from me on the cricket field. It was just I guess as people, we our relationship helped us both get better, I think.
And one of the things that happens in that year of 97 is that Surrey won the Benson and Hedges, now I've probably been renamed 6 times since then, but they won the one-day competition, beating Kent in the final at Trent Bridge. How important was that as a stepping stone to what Surrey were going to achieve over the next 4 or 5 years?
It was crucial, because we won our first competition in 1996. We won the Sunday League, and that was a sort of watershed. That just, wow, we're actually capable of winning something here, because before that we had no belief. We thought we were good, but we told everybody else in the country we were good, but we didn't back it up. We were just big talkers. So to do that, actually, I think it showed us that we were capable of doing it. And then 97, the Benson and Hedges was one step further, and that just I think that just cemented us. Hey, we really are. That wasn't just a fluke last year, and now we want to go on to bigger and better things.
Adam, we'll talk later on about the amazing success once you've got the team together that Surrey enjoyed. In this section of the show, I'd like to talk about your England career. And let's first of all talk about your Test debut, August of 1997. It was the 5th Test of a 6-match series against your native Australia. I mean, it's extraordinary in many, many ways. Here you are playing against the country where you effectively grew up, and you are Australian, let's be honest. Whatever. I suppose let me ask you that. Do you feel Australian?
Yeah, I guess I do. I don't really feel anything. I don't feel like I belong anywhere. It's weird. I feel very nomadic. Like I said, I always travelled around as a kid, and I think the question that you really want to know is, do I feel English? And the answer to that is probably no. I mean, I played for England, and that was me reaching the top of my profession. And if I was to have to say where did I deserve to or belong, it was as an England player. It wasn't as an Australian player. I never played cricket in Australia, so. But I don't actually, nationality-wise, I don't feel like I belong in any country. I've just always been a traveller, really. So
okay, well, you do play. I mean, as I say, an Australian kid playing for England in that Test match against that great Australian team was one remarkable thing. But of course, you made your debut on the same day as your brother Ben made his Test debut. How special was that?
Well, at the time, it didn't seem like any big deal. Do you know what I mean? I mean, obviously now it's one of my fondest memories and something that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. But at the time, it was like, it was no big deal. Me and him would just achieve success, and we kind of expected it. So I was a little bit surprised he was there so early. He was only 18 or something. So but at the end of the day, it was like we didn't even think. It was like going and playing for Surrey again. It wasn't. We didn't sort of understand the magnitude of us both making our debut as brothers. And I think it was only even like the last few years that someone actually told me that was the first time that had happened for,
since 1957, when two men called, believe me, I don't remember it, Peter and Dick Richardson of Worcestershire played for England together. I mean, what you say is interesting there to me, Adam. Look, this is impossible because we all grow, I suppose, a little wiser, or at least we hope to grow wiser as we get older. But it's given what happened subsequently, particularly with your brother, do you wish someone had told you to try and focus more on what was happening in those early days and not just to kind of expect it because you were both so talented?
Yeah. I mean, look, it is what it is. You just go along, and at the time, I think you do take it for granted. I mean, if you'd asked a lot of other guys, I think they would have done the same. And in hindsight, there's a lot of things you'd probably do differently when you look back. But we were just, we got to understand, we were just young kids. I was like 24, he was 18, and we were just going along and playing games of cricket. Next minute, we're out there playing against the best side in the world, and it didn't seem like a big deal at the time. But now, when you look back at, it obviously was. So it's hard to sort of think we should have thought differently, I guess.
Sure. Well, you played in both the 5th and 6th Test. England lost the 5th and actually won the last one. In that way, that England were always winning the last Test when Australia had given us a clattering in the course of the series. I mean, it is worth saying, of course, that Australian team, and you can tell me the rest of them, contained Shane Warne, Gillespie, Glenn McGrath, both the War brothers, Mark Taylor, Ricky Ponting. It wasn't a fair fight, was it, Adam? Because it is arguable that's the greatest cricket team that God has ever put shoes on.
Yeah, well, Test cricket isn't a fair fight. You know what I mean? I think if you were to ask me, ask anybody, which side would you least like to play against, then you'd probably say, the side, West Indies side in the 70s and 80s, and then that Australian side. And but on the other side, flip of the coin, it's like, wow, I had the opportunity to play against these guys who are, they're going to go down in history, and they were great players, and you get a chance to test yourself against these legends of the game.
Did you
You don't want to lose in that experience.
I mean, and also, they're also famous. They're a group of very hard nuts as well. When you came to the wicket to play in those 2 Tests against Australia, did your background in Australia, whatever about your own feelings of nomadicness and all the rest of it, nomadicness is a word, did they give you plenty of jip, as we say here in England?
Oh, absolutely. And I was kind of hoping they did, because I felt at that time that I performed better when pressured mentally, and sometimes I could be accused of drifting off and lacking focus. But when I was sledged, I was, sometimes it would help me focus. But I didn't. These guys are not only the best players in the world; their sledging is so good. It's it's Shane. I think they'd done research on me, and I was standing there waiting to take guard, and I think it was Warney actually said to me, "Hey Oz, I wonder if your Uncle Rex is watching back in Ballarat." I went, man. I turned around. I was like, "Do you know Rex?" And it was like, I thought these guys are good. They've gone away. They've done their research and
that's just but that's almost creepy, though, isn't it?
It was a bit spooky. I was like, hey, don't be bringing my Uncle Rex into this, like it was, it was good stuff. They came out with some good banter, and they had actually, a good friend of mine was on that tour. It was Brendan Julian, who played for Surrey, and they, he'd told them during the one days, he said, hey man, don't sledge this guy. He fires up if you sledge him. Just keep quiet and don't say anything. And I think by the time the test matches come around, they got sick of not saying anything to me, and they couldn't bite their tongue any longer. They were into me before I even taken guard.
It sounds remarkable, but not as remarkable in some ways. I mean, we'll come on to what you feel about this, but you only played 4 tests for England in total, which, given your success at Surrey, seems a bit odd to me now. But those 2 tests were against the great Australian team. Then you went to the West Indies early in 1998. And you played in one of the more remarkable and shortest test matches of all time, that first test at Kingston. Did you get, I remember, for those who don't remember, the pitch was an absolute disgrace, and England were in the process of being bowled out for about 1-5 when the umpire said, no, this isn't suitable. Did you actually get in, Adam?
No, I didn't get in. It was, it was crazy stuff out there. I just remember it being complete turmoil, and the ball was, one ball flying at the head, the next ball rolling along the floor, and obviously they had Ambrose and Walsh and pretty
that'd do it.
Stuff. We had Tuffers running around the changing room, crapping himself. So it was like it was bizarre scenes, really.
You actually played in the second test in Port of Spain, and that was the end of your England Test career, which contrasts with your one-day career. Do you think you had a fair crack of the whip in the longer form of the game, Adam?
Yeah, I guess. Look, if you look back at the 90s, there was a lot of guys who came in, got given 1 or 2 tests, and then flicked.
Yeah.
So I think I could be with a handful of players who could have some sort of argument saying we didn't play. You know what? If they'd given other guys a chance, I might not have even got a chance in the first place. I'm going to be the first to hold my hand up and say my concentration over one day isn't that good, let alone 5. So for me to play a test match was a big thing. One of my biggest, weakest points is my ability to concentrate over a long period of time. So I was always suited to the shorter form of the game, and 2020 would have been perfect for me because I'm always there for a good time, not for a long time. So test match was always hard for me.
I will say this: you got 4 caps. I work here regularly at TalkSport with Ronnie Irani, of course, an exact contemporary of yours around the England scene. He only got 3 test match caps. But whatever you say about the selectors and their, but that we think that's about right. 3 for Irani. That's plenty, isn't it?
Oh mate, he shouldn't have played that many. Ronnie's a legend. And he's a good guy. He's just one of the guys similar to me. He was, he just gave it his all, and just went out and gave it his best shot. So, mate, Ronnie and I had a great relationship over the years. We abused each other playing against each other, and just a good guy there. Talk
to me about then taking over the captaincy of the one-day team. I think it was a tournament in Sharjah. Mike Atherton, for whatever reason, decided not to do it, and you to go to the tour, go to that tournament, and you find yourself captaining England in the one-day arena.
Yeah, no, it was strange because I'd played. I think before that point, I'd played. I think maybe like the 5 one-day internationals.
A handful,
all of a sudden, I'd played 5. I think 2 against Pakistan and 3 against Australia. So, next minute I was asked to be captain. I was like, man, you don't turn down the captaincy of your country. You don't do that. Do you know what I mean? I was like, if someone had said to me, do they think it's a good idea? I'd have said, well, no, I want to establish myself a bit more before I do that. But hey, I'm not going to back away from any challenge, so come on, let's do this. And then we went out there, and then we had half a team, and Goffey didn't come, and Athers didn't come, and a few others were like sort of resting up for the West Indies trip, and we just had a great bunch of guys, and we just gelled, and it just happened. We just had a great spirit, and no one was really, the media weren't interested in what was going on out there, and we just went out and played, and next thing we were beating India and Pakistan and West Indies, and and we won the whole thing. Which
You
was,
won the trophy. What did that feel like?
Yeah, that was it was great because it was winning a trophy with a bunch of guys who I'd become very close with over a short period of time. And as we'll go on to talk about, I'm sure. And the biggest moment for me in cricket is with Surrey, is like growing up with these guys and then achieving something as a group is far better than anything that you'll do as an individual or anything. So it's always great when you can enjoy stuff with guys you like. And that was, they were a tremendous bunch of guys, and I really enjoyed them. And to me, that's probably my favourite moment playing for England.
The tournament, looking back, the tournament, particularly the Pakistani team, there's been a lot of talk about, indeed there's been investigations into whether or not they were trying their hardest, bookmakers, all the usual things that occasionally blight cricket. Were you aware, Adam, what was the atmosphere like around that time in one-day cricket internationally? Were there accusations that people were not playing the game straight?
Yeah, no, there was some sort of talk about it. We were out there to play the game. I'm not like... Yeah, I just thought I was really good. I kept on bowling straight balls, and these guys kept missing them. It was like, oh wow, they don't miss those in county cricket. Like, I think we didn't think anything of it at the time, but when I look back now, I think some funny stuff happened, and I actually got approached myself in that same tournament out there to give some inside information to a bookie, and
wow.
So it's just starting to come out. I mean, now in hindsight, people have gone to jail and. So it's big news, but back then it was pretty like, the guy rang me up and asking for some information, and it didn't seem like a big deal. I just went and told the manager and was like, yeah, whatever, and get on with it, So now looking back, with the knowledge we've got, it's like, wow, it's a big deal, you know what I mean? But at the time it was just all new, so. We just thought we were doing better than we obviously were.
Adam, your term as captaincy ended. There was a mixture of things. England changed their policy yet again. As you say, this was in the days before England selectors got their act together, and they decided they wanted to have one person running both the teams. And you also had a shoulder injury. You end up playing under Alex Stewart, your great friend and colleague from Surrey, including in the '99 World Cup. And overall, you played about 35, 36 times for England as a one-day cricketer. And again, I'm going to ask you the same question as I ask you about your Test career. Are you happy, given the amazing things we're going to talk about with Surrey, that you made the most of your talents in the one-day arena for England?
Yes, again, I think, if someone said to me, should I have played more Tests or more one-day internationals, I probably feel, if anything, I might have played a few more one-day internationals. But, hey, look, what are we talking? Like, are we talking another 10 or 20 games? What if I play 35 or 55? It doesn't matter, do you know what I mean? It's like, I might have played 25. The fact is, I know I went out there every time I play, and I gave it my best, and I just had a crack. I'm not going to sit here now, like, however many 15 years later, and say, I should have played 20 more games. It's not. It doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about the memories. It's about the people. It's about enjoying the moment. So yeah, I could have played a few more games. Maybe I could have. And there's probably hundreds of other county cricketers out there saying the same thing. I don't want to be a dude sitting around like crying in my beer about what might have happened. It's like, I had a great time and just get on and just enjoy it.
Adam, we spoke earlier about your early years with Surrey, but now I'd like to return, if I may, to the period between 1997 and 2003, where you captained the county to, I won't say unprecedented success, because they were so successful in the late 50s and early 60s, but to a success that no county has since, or looks likely to achieve. What do you make of the dominance that Surrey enjoyed, winning the championship alone in 1999, 2000 and 2002? One great team, several great teams. How did you do it?
Well, firstly, like 99 is, that's the pinnacle of everything as far as I was concerned. We'd grown up, like I mentioned earlier, with Mark Butcher and, Alex Stewart had grown up with this great desire for us to win, the championship. This is the thing we all aspired to.
Mm-hmm.
When we won that championship in 99, that was like the proudest moment of my life. It was, some of the things that you cherish the most are often the things you have to work the hardest for. And that was the first time we'd won the championship since the year I was born, which is 1971. So that was a massive thing for us. It's like, I remember people just tears of joy in our changing room when we won that thing. So, and then I think from then it was just, okay, let's kick on now and let's really let's really dominate this thing, which I think we all felt we could do. And it was open chats in our change room about that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to dominate this thing for 4 or 5 years. And there was other great sides out there, some other very good sides out there, and we just fortunately at those particular years we just had their number. We had great players, and it just all clicked for us, and just things went right. We had a bit of luck, and everything just happened for us.
Adam, I'm glad to hear that there were tears of joy in the dressing room in 1999, because sometimes these days the county championship has become a bit of a backwater. The star players tend not to play in it because they're off with their various countries. There's the people come and go in the teams with very short-term contracts, so I think it's devalued the tournament. But it's good to hear that the players obviously clearly took it very, very seriously.
Oh, it was the ultimate. You think about the days you play your cricket in your season. It's 17 4-day games there was. So that's a lot of those days. And then we had 3 other one-day tournaments, but the amount of days you spent out there striving to win that championship, there's no more money available or anything like that. Or there's certainly, like you've alluded to, winning a Benson and Hedges trophy is a far bigger occasion and more publicity. So it was just a personal thing that we just decided we wanted to do. We wanted to win that championship, and I can't comment on what the championship's like now, but I think a lot of the other sides were the same back then. 99 was 2 divisions, 2000 was the first year of 1 division. So to win those 2 was just it was just huge.
I'm fascinated to hear you talk about 1999 in this way, because I should make the point that Mark Ramprakash defected, if that's the right word, from Middlesex to Surrey in 2001. But both Mark and Alex Stewart have been the subject of my sporting life over the past 18 months. And oddly enough, when I listened back to the shows in preparation for this, they both thought the 2002 team was the best. Well, Ramps would say that, wouldn't he?
Yeah. He has to. He was in it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I think the 99 side was the best side. We won that championship with games to spare. We had everything there. I mean, also, I always probably feel that because my brother was there as well. So
yeah,
I'm going to be biased.
Well, look, we will talk about 2002 in more depth, actually, because in the next section of the show, because of the significance of it regarding and what happened with your brother Ben. But I just thought I'd throw that in, that there are people who were there who, for different reasons, love that 2002 team. And as you say, Ben was with you when you won it in '99, and that brings that extra strength of feeling for you. What about in the one-day cricket? We heard about the Benson Hedges victory in '97. You won it again in '01, and memorably won the first ever 2020 tournament in 2003. I mean, was that a big thing? Because, of course, now it's huge 2020 cricket all over the world. In fact, it's dominating the game, isn't it?
I think at the time, in the first few games of that campaign, before we came out to play the first, we thought it was a joke. Are you serious? We're playing 20 over cricket. This is rubbish. And that sounds funny to hear someone say that now, but literally that was what it was like. And I think our thinking about the game was just a little bit ahead of the other sides. No one had really quite worked it out yet, so I think we just got the jump on a few people tactically, and I don't think we didn't lose a game until the final of the 2004. So we were like 17 games or whatever it was undefeated. So we caught the jump on everyone, and I mean, now it's obviously everyone knows every possible tactic that there is to do it, and the game's moved on a lot. But back then, everyone was still trying to work the game out. So we just worked it out a little quicker than everybody else, I think. We talk about how big it's become. Is that a surprise to you, though? I mean, as you say, it started out, I remember going to see the very, very first games of it while working for the BBC, but it appeared a bit of a novelty. Are you surprised that it's become so popular with people? I wasn't. At first, I was surprised it became so popular, but then what we did was, like, after the first 2 or 3 games, it was, hey, this is good stuff. This is exciting. It's short. It sort of fits in with the length of a movie, or a bit longer than a game of football. It was short, exciting. I remember more sort of the moment when I realised how good it was when I went back to 4-day cricket. and we just played this bang, like, wallop type game, and went back, and I remember Martin Bicknell ran up the first over of a 4-day game and bowled 6 balls just outside off stump.
Yeah.
This is rubbish.
Yeah.
So, it was good stuff. So,
the funny thing is
pretty
that
quickly I worked out it was good.
Much as I love Test cricket in particular, it's funny that the public have kind of voted with their feet on this matter, haven't they, to some extent? Let me ask you one more question about this domination that Surrey enjoyed. In many ways, and people have referred to them, it's a very, as you say, very progressive club. It's a club that's always traditionally had plenty of money. People talk about it being the Manchester United of English cricket. During this time when the team with the brown caps were winning absolutely everything, did you sense much resentment from the other parts of cricket with the cricket world?
Funny, it's a good question, because early 90s and mid 90s we were hated, and rightly so. We were cocky, arrogant, all those things that nobody really likes, and we had no right to be. We hadn't won anything. I remember when we started winning, and I expected, wow, they're really going to hate us now. It just shows that there's so many good people in cricket, because all of a sudden people started coming and saying, you know what, you guys aren't so bad. And I can solely put that down to, well, we've earned our respect now. We were carrying on like we deserved the respect in the mid-90s, and we didn't. We hadn't won anything. We were carrying on walking around like we were the best side in the league, and we weren't. I think no one had a problem with it. Once we actually started winning, and we were still carrying on like walking around like we were that good, but we'd actually won a few things, and people said, okay, well, you've earned that. So I didn't feel that resentment, no. And I think that sort of made me happy, and with the cricket community as a whole, I think that's a nice thing about them. They acknowledge it if you deserve it, and if you don't and you're carrying on, they don't want to, they'll let you know about that too.
I mean, Adam, we're about halfway through the show now, and in the next half of the show, we're going to hear about some things that have happened to you in your personal life and your business life that mean that your life has been something of an emotional and, in other ways, a roller coaster. But just to bring us to an end for this first half of the show, when you look back now on your Surrey career, with all that we've talked about and virtually no downs, how would you sum up? How do you look back on that time at the Oval?
It's the strongest memories that I have. And people always say to me, I've got no memorabilia up in my house. I've got no anything to signify that I actually played for Surrey. And people are like, why is that? I said, well, those memories are so powerful and they're so strong and so good. If I spend all my time thinking about those, then I'll just become a prisoner of my past, and I'm just going to be living in the past. So they're so strong that I've tried to totally put it out of my mind, and it's just nice on occasions like this when I can actually relive it and remember it.
We've been hearing about your triumphs with that great Surrey team of 10 years ago. But on the 23rd of March in 2002, your world, I guess, and that of your family was turned upside down, and the tragedy when your brother Ben, who we've heard so much about, and was such a talented cricketer, was killed in a car accident in your native Australia. Tell us about the day and what happened, Adam.
Oh, so we were basically going out for dinner that night. My whole family, my mother, my father, my sister, the whole lot of us, and it was something we always did before coming back to England. I think we were meant to fly back a day or the next day or the day before, so we always took my mum and dad out for dinner before we came back, and we were out for dinner and we finished the night, and he just went off in his car one direction and I went the other direction, and we only probably lived a kilometre apart, and then about 45 minutes later or an hour later, I had a phone call from my father. And I thought, wow, that's strange, because he's ringing my mobile. He should be home by now. And he rang and he said, oh, I've got some, there's been a terrible accident. And I was thinking, in my mind, at my time slowed down. And I was thinking, I could hear he was talking on the phone, and I knew he was in the car with Mum. So I was thinking, they've had an accident and something's happened to my mum. Do you know what I mean? That's what was going on in my mind. And then he said, Ben's dead. And I was like, what? No, and I just couldn't comprehend it. So he's like, just time stood still. It was like I just couldn't grasp what he was telling me.
I mean, I take it. Sorry to interrupt, but I take it that your father was in shock himself, because is it strange to ring you up on the phone to say this?
Well, the thing was, it was literally, I think he thought there was something I could do. I guess at that stage he's in shock, and he rang me up, and it was only like literally a kilometre from where I was. So I guess he wanted me to come down there, or I don't know what. I mean, look, I didn't think clearly for 2 months, so I can't imagine that he would have been thinking clearly at that particular time. But certainly, like, nothing I can do. But I guess he wanted me to come down there. So and we literally, my wife was 7 months pregnant at the time, and I said, look, Ben's died in a car accident, and she was like, what? Like, and we drove down there. It seemed to take about 2 hours to go, like 1 kilometre, and I told her she had to drive because I could just feel I was in no state to drive. And we got down there, and they'd already taken him away, and then there was just me, and my family all there together. It was just devastation, just complete devastation, and that was the moment that my life changed. Really, it was just like, obviously from that moment it was never going to be the same.
I mean, nothing. I met your brother once for several hours when we did a TV show together. Because he was so young, a very handsome lad, and a brilliant sportsman, and full of life and vitality. And as you say, the suddenness of this. When you say your life changed, tell us how it's affected your life, Adam.
Oh well, it's just to put it in a nutshell. It's like it took me a while to work this out, how to move on and how to sort of carry on with life without basically just curling up in a ball and dying, because it's just what I felt like doing. I just said, well, life's just not going to be the same anymore. I've experienced my happiest moment before now, and now that doesn't mean I can't be happy, but I might only ever achieve 95% happiness now but I've had my happiest moment, and I've got to make do with the best with what's going to come in the future, and that's okay. I've had the happiest moments in my life when he was around. So now it took me 5 years, really I put on a brave face when I was playing for Surrey, when I came back, and my father, I didn't want to come back. I didn't want to play anymore. I just wanted to just be left alone, And my dad, he's a tough guy, and he said, you got to go back. I lost one son. We can't let this defeat our family. So that was the only thing that sort of really made me go back and start playing cricket again.
I mean, I hope this doesn't sound too crass. I mean, of course, you say your wife was 7 months pregnant, and of course, you stayed in Australia for the birth of your first child, Benaya. I mean, I don't want to say what happened to Ben, did it spoil the birth of your first child? But that is a tremendous mix-up of emotions all happening at the same time.
Mate, it was it's a blur. And then what hasn't really been publicised is that she was born and there was massive difficulties with the childbirth, and we almost lost her. She was in intensive care for the first week, so it was like, what's going on? Like, it's just, I just felt like my world was just the rug had been pulled from under me. It was like someone's just out here to ruin my life. So there was so many things going on there, and it was like, now I look back on them, and my daughter, she's beautiful. As all my kids are, but I think that time, when I do think back on it, I think you're probably right. It probably does. It's not a happy time when I think back on, she's in intensive care. My brother had just died. I mean, how could you be happy? It wasn't just your regulation birth where everyone's partying and celebrating. So I guess it was ruined a little bit, yeah.
You say your dad was instrumental in getting you to come back, a couple of months into the 2002 season here, and we'll talk about the cricket in just a second. What was it like when you came back to England and back to the Surrey dressing room, given all that had happened? Because, of course, it was enormous news in this country.
Yeah, I mean, there was, the Surrey guys were, they were fantastic. They, guys regularly called me up, let me know what was going on, and they kept me informed with how we were going, and some of those guys are they're not my teammates, they're my family. Do you know what I mean? So these things can only either bring you closer or push you apart. And some of the guys in that team are special human beings, and literally they did become family. We became family at that particular moment. So yeah, just again bizarre emotions around that time.
I mean, it's interesting that you should say that, because one of the most influential books to come out of cricket in recent years was Marcus Trescothick's book about how difficult he found the locker room environment of the cricket dressing room. You know, very male. He said he found it very hard for anyone to understand real feelings and all the rest of it, because it was all just about the cricket and taking the mickey out of each other. But clearly, this was not your experience.
Oh, look, you know, changing rooms are made up of completely different people. But I did get a lot of comfort from a number of the guys in the team, and you know, I'll remember that forever. I'll forever till the day I die. I'll never forget those people that were there for me. I never asked for any help. I never cried out for help or anything. But they were there. They were just, you know, and they never pushed it upon me. But I just knew they were there. So, to me, the changing room environment is the best moments. Okay. That's what you live for. I mean, if someone says to me, "Do you miss playing cricket?" I'm like, "Nah, not really. I miss 10:30 till 11 o'clock. So that we started at 11, and between 10:30 we finished warming up. We got half an hour. They're the best half an hour every day. We just like walk around, just taking the piss out of each other. That to me was the highlight of my day. So I love that. I thrive on that environment. For me, it's great.
And I mean, again, I'm not a psychologist. I've got no pretense to being a psychologist. So I don't know whether it was because of what happened to Ben, in spite of what happened to Ben, or neither of those. But you actually were in brilliant form when you came back, and you scored lots and lots of runs, including your first double 100.
Yeah, Again, I mean, I've spoken to people, psychologists since, and what have you, and they say that it's not uncommon for that sort of thing to happen. It was the best form I ever was in my life, and I think it was because I didn't care. I really did not care. I went out there, and it was like, you know what? I had no fear of getting out. I had no fear of failure, because what can be worse than losing your brother? Or so I just went out and just played. And I was like, if I got out, I got out. But inevitably, I didn't, because I wasn't worried about it, which is one of the biggest limiting factors on sports people. So if you could bottle that frame of mind up and take it around with you, you would. But I wouldn't wish it on anybody. So, yeah.
And last question about this, if I may, Adam, and because I'm interested, because of the situation I've never had to deal with. I'm sure you think about your brother every day and many times every day, but it took you 5 years to come to terms with it. How have your feelings about all of what happened changed, do you think, or have they changed you?
Well, I think what changed is, for 5 years I was like, I'm fine, I'm just dealing with it, you know what I mean? But every time I thought of my brother, I thought of the half an hour of him dying. And I thought, I've lost him. And I thought of going forward in life without him. And probably 5 years ago, because it's been 10 years now, I just one day I was just like, you know what? I started laughing about the things that we did do. And I wasn't focusing on that half hour when we lost him and going forward without him. I just literally looked back and enjoyed the times that we did have together. And once I did that, that really changed, enabled me to just sort of get on and enjoy my life. And then the times when I did think about him, I had a big smile on my face, because I laughed about the amazing things that we did do together. So that was probably, I don't know what triggered it or how it happened. If I did, I'd be a millionaire, because I'd be able to write a book about it. But just something happened, and one day it was just different.
Adam, after winning the title again for the third time with Surrey in 2002, and making yourself the most successful captain in English cricket by a million miles, I guess, to say, for a quarter of a century, you gave up the captaincy in 2003. Why did you decide to do that?
I guess we've never really talked about this before, and sort of never at the time. We just we towed the party line with the media and stuff like that. But I wasn't happy with the way I was leading the team. I wasn't happy with my attitude. I was pretty much wasn't putting the work in training. I was just going out playing. I felt I was setting a bad example to the young players who then came on and thought, saw me, I'd go out and drinking and then come out the next day and play, and I was leading a pretty carefree life, and I didn't feel I was the best person to be leading the side, and I thought it was best that I could still impart my influence on a new captain and try and whoever they chose to be captain to just try and help them blend in for that next year.
I mean, obvious question: the drinking and the not quite training at the very top of your game. Is this because you're trying to deal with what happened to your brother?
I would say it's definitely a result of that, because I wasn't like that before. So it'd be a massive coincidence. It was pretty much like I'd decided in my mind that I was just going to try and live every moment that I had and just give it my best. So when I went out over night time, I went out and I gave it my best. It was like I had fun. I was just doing what I want. I was like, I was in my mind, I was thinking I could die at any moment. I mean, because when it happens to someone so close to you, I guess you feel quite fallible yourself. So
wow.
I was I'll just go out there just living pretty reckless, and sometimes I wouldn't even warm up for games, and that was just a really bad example. I mean, there's more to being a professional sportsman than just turning up and playing the games. And although we were being successful, I think 2003 was our most successful season ever in terms of games won, etc. It was like I knew it was a bad example that I was setting, and I had to get out of there.
Yeah, as you say, they finished third in the championship, and you won the first 2020, which we already talked about. And the following year, in 2004, you also finished third. At the end of that season, and you're not an old man, you decide to retire completely. Why did you do that?
I was still trying to deal with my brother dying. I've sort of always towed the party line, and I've always said, "Oh no, I'm fine. I'm dealing with it, and I've just got to get on with it." And so told everybody what they wanted to hear. But my life, I wasn't enjoying it. I knew that my family my parents and my sister were battling back in Australia emotionally, and I decided I wanted to come back and be with them. And I was 32. I was probably in the peak of my career at that particular time. I was playing the best cricket I'd ever played. So it was just a decision that I made, that my family was more important than my cricket career at that particular time.
Do you regret retiring so early?
Do I think I should have? No, I don't. It's a fair question, really fair question. I sometimes now think, well, I could have achieved so much more, but no, I don't, because at that particular moment, you can only go at the time with this. I feel okay now. Back then, I didn't feel okay. So if I'm sitting here today, I feel good. So I think, I could go out and play now. Do you know what I mean? I physically feel like I could go out and do it now. But back then, I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling happy, and I wanted to be with my family. So that's the decision at the time was 100% right.
Well, let me just say that that brings to the end, there are one or two more games we may talk about later on, but that brings to an end one of the more remarkable county cricket careers. And although we've been talking about some very sad things, I think we should reflect now on just what a great time it was for Surrey County Cricket Club with you at the helm. And to help us do that, we're joined by one of the people who shared those glory days, your friend and the former England fast bowler, Alex Tudor. Good evening, Alex.
Good evening, Danny. How are you?
Very, very good indeed. Say hello to Adam.
Skipper, how are you?
Hey, Tude. How you going, big man?
Yeah, not too bad, buddy. Not too bad. Nice to hear your voice.
Alex, tell us about those great days in that Surrey dressing room and the things that the team achieved. Because I was just been saying to Adam, I don't see them ever being dominated like that again in English cricket.
No, I mean, I was very fortunate indeed to step into that change room and have the vast of experience that was in there. I mean, Adam Holioake, Alex Stewart, Graham Thorpe, Mark Butcher. I mean, the names, and then Mark Ramprakash came from Middlesex. I mean, the names are endless. Martin Bicknell, Ali Brown. I mean, I think there was 14 internationals at one stage. So for a young guy like me and, Ben, we stepped into the ranks and we were just guided extremely well. We had a wealth of experience to lean on, and it was a great era where everything just clicked together. And Adam at the helm, I mean, what a leader he was. And people always ask me, who was the best captain that you've played under? And for me personally, it was always Adam. He was just an individual that he would never ask you to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself, and you would run through a brick wall for him. And it was just phenomenal how he was able to deal with the personalities for one that was in a change room, because there was some definite personalities in the change room.
Well, Alex, he's a personality himself. How did he go about doing that?
Adam, as people would know, he's a very strong individual, and he's certainly an individual that you wouldn't want to mess with. And when Adam spoke, you certainly listened. And as I said, he led from the front. And if he wanted something doing, he generally did it himself. But then he would ask on other people to go with him, and we certainly did that. And the era we had there, we won 3 championships in the Sunday League, the first 2020, and it was just unbelievable to be a part of that. And it was a great time for Surrey County Cricket Club.
Now, I must say, and I'm happy to take views from either of you on this. I work here at TalkSport with Darren Goff, and he said that there was an incident between the two of you. It was only horseplay. Is this right? That Adam has actually knocked you out, Alex, or is that just something that Goff has made up?
No. It's it does get sort of, as you can imagine, Danny. The truth does sometimes get in the way of a good story.
Right.
It does get talked up.
Yeah, it does get talked up, and people talk about it. Yeah, Adam did put me on the floor. Basically, Adam, as we all know, he loves his boxing, and he's now into his mixed martial arts. And in the winter, myself and Ben used to go with Adam, and we used to go and train and do our boxing. So, I was okay. I wasn't I was no David Hay or anything like that, but I was okay. And
he was good, man. He had some talent.
I was all right. And Adam, it was raining, and we went down into the gym, and we had a little bit of a spar. Keith Medlicott, Alex Stewart were also there, and we did a little bit. But I was the only one where Adam said, right, we'll do headshots as well. The others were a little bit like pansies, and they were like, no,
yeah,
just
a bit gun shy.
Yeah, a little bit gun shy. So
the other guys would be always like saying, "Oh, we'll spar," but they could hit me, but I would never be able to hit them back.
Yeah,
so
correct.
It turned into like a bit of a firing line. But Tudes had the ability, and he was a big dude as well. So it was like, okay, well, and what he's failed to tell you is we went and did a boxing session where he forgot a mouth guard. So I couldn't hit him in the head in one earlier, and he actually gave me a bit of a lesson. He schooled me a bit, and he dined out on it for a little while.
Oh yeah, he would. Yeah.
So and then I think I might have been a little bit more enthusiastic when we got back the second time for the rematch, and it wasn't meant to go the way it went, but basically I just landed a good right shot on that chin of his, and
it was. I actually thought I slipped, Danny. It was one of those weird ones. I've never been knocked out ever, and it was one of those ones I thought I actually slipped. But then as I got up, I thought, yeah, I don't feel too good. I was a little bit groggy.
I got to tell you now, Alex, the way Goff tells it now, you were unconscious before you hit the floor.
No. Yeah, I'm sure Darren will exaggerate it. Yeah, there's no surprise there.
That's why he works on radio.
Yeah. I've always said, look,
he talks the story up.
All the guys that talk it up, I've always said, listen, I've got a pair of gloves and all that. If we want to have a try and have a little mix around, I'm up for it. But they never do want to do it. So there you go.
Alex,
funny thing was when we used to go out, and when I was playing ring, we used to people came up and started pestering me when I was playing for England. We used to tell them that Tudes was my bodyguard. So we used to like, he's obviously a massive guy. Tudes, he's 6'6", big boy. So
yeah, I wouldn't fight him.
People used to come up, So people used to run away when they thought, "Oh, I'm not going to mess with Adam. He's got his bodyguard with him."
Alex, it's been a pleasure. Sorry, an absolute pleasure to hear from you. Could you just sum up then what you think, in all seriousness, apart from the occasional black eye, what you think the contribution that Adam Holioake made to that historic Surrey team was?
Oh, absolutely monumental, Danny. I mean, it went through a long time without winning. Alex Stewart debuted in '81 or whatever it was, never won a championship, and then some young guys, and then Adam came along at the helm, and then all of a sudden, 2 in a row, and we won 3 in 4 years, and it was just great what he did. There was a lot of, international players going off, and then he had a lot of stuff to deal with, other personnel's coming in. So for him to be able to handle that, and it's, for me, arguably the biggest club in county cricket, and he held it, and he dealt with it all so well, and you've got a lot of committee members, and, he spoke from the heart. He never dodged any questions. He told it how it was. Certain people might not have liked that, but we as players loved it. We loved the honesty, and we're forever grateful for what he's given our club, and we hope that maybe Graham Smith may be able to do the same in years to come.
We shall see, Alex. Absolutely brilliant to talk to you, and thank you very much for giving us some insight into the way Adam Holioake helped transform Surrey.
Thanks very much, Danny, and have a good rest of your show. No problem, Skipper. Take care.
I'll pay you later for that, Cheers.
Thank you, mate.
Take care, buddy.
When most cricketers retire from the sport, they tend to spend their time playing golf or propping up the lounge bar of a nice hostelry somewhere in the counties. In recent times, you've been doing exactly the opposite. I mean, we heard from Alex Tudor that you're pretty handy with your fists, but you've been doing. And let's be fair, you're not a teenager anymore. You've been doing both boxing and mixed martial arts. How on earth did you get involved in those?
Yeah, well, I mean, it sounds very strange to people who don't know me. Obviously, people have seen me out there with my cricket whites on, and captaining England and speaking all nicely. But I actually grew up, like I told you earlier, in Ballarat, and I was fighting every day there. And then when I came to England, I actually went down and I used to sneak out of boarding school to go to Woking Amateur Boxing Club, and I just developed a love for the game back then, and I've sort of carried that on throughout my whole career. During the off season, I'd always box and train, and it was only when I got here onto the Gold Coast that I went down to the Matrix boxing gym here, and I went down and bumped into Stephen NG. And we developed a very close friendship, and I was having some weight issues. I'd broken my ankle. I'd discovered red wine, and with red wine goes food. I'd stacked on heaps of weight, and I went down there, and I was actually doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu,
right,
which is basically a form of wrestling. And he came in one day I turned up to the wrong class, and it was the mixed martial arts class. And he was teaching striking because he's a professional boxer and professional mixed martial artist himself. And the next thing, he was helping me get some weight off, and one day one of the guys didn't turn up, so I'm sparring, and he just threw me in there, and I went pretty well. And he was like, "Wow, you go all right." He organised a celebrity fight for me out here, and I had that, and basically I did fairly well in that. And then he said, "Have you ever considered fighting professionally? Because I think you can do it." So the situation arose that I had an opportunity to take a professional fight, and I took that fight and won by TKO. And the next minute I was being offered to fight, because Jiu-Jitsu is probably one of the foundations of mixed martial arts.
Yeah. And
with my boxing, so next minute I was fighting in mixed martial arts and as well. So. And it sort of coincided with a few financial woes, and
yeah. Well, we'll talk about that. We're going to talk later in the show about the financial things that have happened to you, and so people might say you're doing this for the money. You're doing it because you've got to make a living. I understand that, but this is a real professional boxing, proper mixed martial arts in one of those wiry cages and all the rest of it. We're going to hear from your coach Stephen in just a second. I'm going to ask you a pretty straightforward question here, Adam, because you've been describing yourself. For those of us, I'm a big chap and all the rest of it, but I would never want to be fighting anybody ever in my life that I can remember. But I mean, straightforward question: do you just like fighting, don't you?
Without trying to sound like a thug, because I'm not.
No.
I do. I love the art of combat. I do. I love it. I think I love competing. If we played table tennis, I will battle. I have no shame in saying that I'm very competitive.
But nobody's going to bash you around the head when you're playing table tennis. That's the difference, isn't it?
That's true. That's the downside of professional boxing. But it is the ultimate sport for competing in, and I just love competing. I love it, and I don't have physical fear. I have fear of losing, but I'm not really scared of being hurt. So. Just that and a few other sort of physical attributes I've got sort of lended me to be able to step into that arena fairly easily.
Okay, well,
I'm not saying it's easy, but...
Well, it's remarkable. I don't know how easy it is. I know it's remarkable. And let's hear from the gentleman who has been instrumental in you both being a professional boxer and a professional mixed martial artist. You call him Stephen NG. I'm going to make a hopeless attempt at his actual surname. It's a very good evening to Stephen Ng. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, how you going, mate?
Very, very good indeed.
You are very, very well. He did very well with the surname too. Spot on.
I've been coached by
I
Adam.
taught him.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been coached. Nice work.
Listen, tell us what kind of shape Adam was in when you got hold of him, Stephen.
Don't.
Oh yeah, look, I'm sure he's gone through it with you already, but yeah, he was a little bit overweight and obviously not feeling the best about himself when he walked through the gym because of a few injuries. And yeah, look, I'm not sure the exact weight. It was about 110 or something like that, Adam.
Yeah, 110 kegs. Yes.
And Stephen, what did you see in him as a person or as a physical being that made you think I can train this guy and we can get him up to a good standard?
Yeah, look, to be honest, the first time I met him in that MMA class, I didn't know who he was in regards to his cricketing background. I'm not a massive fan of cricket myself. I've watched a little bit of it over the years. So I just really saw him as I suppose a middle-aged guy coming to an MMA class and doing some striking with me, and straight away I could tell that he'd done a little bit before, and I sort of said, oh, what's your background, which he said he'd done a little bit of boxing and a bit of jiu-jitsu here and there, and it was pretty brief, that first session, and just saw him here and there at the gym at a few different classes and got talking to him, and and the name started to ring a little bit of a bell, and got to ask, who is this Adam Holioake guy, and sort of background on him then. So, but the attributes he shows in cricket are all just as good for boxing. He had good eyes, very good judge of his distance, which I suppose goes with the cricket ball, and the whole coordination of your hands and your eyes and feet together. So yeah, it wasn't a real hard conversion over, especially for an elite athlete like Adam who's played at the highest level. He knows how to train hard, he knows how to work through injuries and pain and all that kind of stuff.
Stephen, let me ask you this. I mean, of course, I don't suppose Adam would have swapped his cricket career and his amazing achievements with Surrey in England. Do you wish you could have got hold of the 20-year-old Holioake?
Without question, if you're starting at that age, you certainly can achieve a little bit better. Being 40 and starting a professional boxing career puts you behind the eight ball. But, he's not doing it to be a world champion. He's doing it for his own personal reasons. And, of course, if I'd have got Adam at the age of 20, I would have only been about 8 myself. But, to get him at the age of 20, he would have been definitely a force to be reckoned with, in my opinion.
Well, listen.
He's talking it up. He's not actually that young, mate. He's actually like only a couple of years younger than me. He's just making himself sound good on the radio.
Well, listen. It is very good to talk to you, Stephen. Thank you very much for joining us here on My Sporting Life. That's Stephen NG. Stephen, there's my training again. Who's helped Adam become a mixed martial artist, and we're only cutting him off there because the line's not so absolutely brilliant. Adam, are you going to carry this on?
Well, we had a good chat about this, Stephen and I, and I've been just basically going out there and just fighting any guy who rocked up, like 20-odd-year-old guys, and we talked about it, and we said, if we're going to do this, let's fight some proper fighters and see if there's some big fights out there. I would love to come over in England and fight. I believe that I can fight well. And okay, I know I probably haven't got. I'm not going to look. This isn't going to be something I'm going to be able to do forever because eventually, age is going to catch up with me. But at the moment, I'm fit. I feel good, and I love fighting. So I think that people look at me like I'm weird and stuff like that. But, it's what I love. Other people like golf. And I think, mate, you know what? Golf's for people who can't fight. It's I just don't like that game. So I don't look at people. I don't judge people that way. It's just what I like doing. It's just that it's a bit strange. Not many people like that.
Well, it's strange because the handbrake turn in sports, and because, with all due respect, and because of your age, let me ask you, the other person you must have spoken to about it other than Stephen, that's your missus, Sharon. What does she make of it?
Well, at first she wasn't happy about the boxing, but then she saw me fight, and I won my first few fights by knockouts, and obviously you can tell when that I know what I'm doing. So I think she realised early doors in that I wasn't making a complete idiot of myself. So I think that was the first concern, and it's kind of like anything. Then when all of a sudden they were locking me in a cage, and I had basically little 4-ounce gloves on there, and we were just basically just me and this other guy just trying to kill each other. I think then she thought boxing's a good idea. So she doesn't like the cage fighting. She really doesn't. And but she's actually quite. I think she thinks now the boxing is good because she sees that I know what I'm doing and she's comfortable with that. I don't think she's ever gonna get over the cage fighting thing. But she's also she's a beautiful woman. She she says, she always said, like, she married me because I'm a free spirit. And she said, if she cages me, then, no pun intended, but if she cages me, that's not, she'd be doing a disservice to me because she knows I'm just a free spirit. So she doesn't try and do that.
One of the reasons, I guess, that you've had to have a handbrake turn is that there's been a very highly publicised financial and business interests of yours have gone very, very badly wrong, ending up with you in court to being declared bankrupt with reported debts of £14 million. What? I mean, as a property empire, as I understand it, or a property business, what went wrong, Adam?
Oh, the whole lot. Well, it was actually a very successful business. Me and my father and my brother set it up back in 1999, and obviously to have got ourselves into debt so large, that shows the scope of how large the company was and how well it was doing. I think it was a mixture of business naivety on my behalf. And also just the timing with the GFC. There were bigger people than us went down. Lehman Brothers, and I think Lady Gaga went down. It was like, I think there was much bigger people than us that got caught up in that. So in the media, they would try and talk it up and say there was court battles. I never ever once tried to fight any of those things. It was just unfortunate that the GFC caught us out. And
sorry, what do you mean the GFC? The global financial crash? Is that it? Yeah. Okay, right.
Yeah, I think that's obviously that's what they refer to it as over here. Sorry, I didn't. I forget that we're over there. So that global financial crash it caught a lot of people out. Just for us, it was appalling timing. We had 5 developments which were just finishing. We were literally months away from finishing, so our borrowing was at its highest as the development was, and the financial crisis came, and the next minute the banks were asking us to put more money in, which we did, and then as I'm sure you guys are all aware, with these things they come down like a deck of cards. So which is exactly what which happened with us. It was and at the time it was quite it was really disturbing because it was the first thing I've ever been involved in which hasn't been successful. My brother dying, obviously. Sure. Nothing we can do about that. But that's for me it was quite a soul-searching time. I was like unsuccessful at something, and I'd always been highly successful at things in the past. And my ego took a massive hit, and I'm a proud guy. It's so it hurt quite a lot.
There are two things. We'll talk about where it's left you personally, but also, you owed lots of people because it was all played out very publicly because you were asked to account for your lifestyle and who your creditors were and all the rest of it in the court case. And it turned out that people like Alex Stewart, I know you is a friend and long-time colleague of yours, has lost a load of money in it. It must be very hard to deal with this personally, isn't it?
Oh, mate, massive. These guys, basically everybody who invested was a close friend of mine, apart from one person, and he was the individual who sort of pursued this. And those guys had all made money over the years. And, so it was. I think it was probably easier for them to stomach. This individual was the first time he'd invested, and rightly so. He was pretty upset, but we're all taking risks in it, and if you really want to be safe with your money, then put it in the bank. So these guys, Alec, he invested money which he knew was, he knew the risks involved, and there were good returns. So it was just one of those things that was unfortunate that one individual decided that he wasn't going to let us work our way out of it, and all the others were prepared to, but that's just the way it planned out. It's a bizarre decision by him, but I guess for me it was it was just very strange the way it went down, and we just have to move on.
Go on. Sorry.
It's just given life is full of highs and lows, and the only way to, when you get in at a low, is look at it as an opportunity to come back. I've come back every time. Like every time I've been down, I always come back. So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to fight back. I love a fight. I love a scrap, as I've alluded to earlier. So this, to me, it's a fantastic opportunity to get myself back on my feet and try and repay those people who've stuck by me.
Well, the company was liquidated in September 2010. As you say, there's been a court case since. I mean, your own personal circumstances, I think, have changed dramatically. I presume you were living a reasonably high life, as befits a successful businessman, and I don't suppose things are the same now.
It's funny you should say that. That's the thing that people presume. I mean, look, we were very, very wealthy. We were, very successful, but just because of that, I wasn't getting around in private jets. I was still driving, a very basic car and living in very humble abode. I'm not a guy who, like I said, I alluded to earlier, I grew up in a caravan. I don't need a big house. I don't need a fast car. I don't have desires. I'm fortunate that I don't have desires for those things. Would I prefer it than not have it? Absolutely. But it's not the thing which makes me tick. It's challenges. It's charity. It's competing. That's the things which really get me excited. If someone took those away from me, I may as well die. But money, like seriously, my car goes, I reckon, about 20 or 30 k's an hour slower. My house is a little bit smaller. My kids, they love me. My wife loves me. Everything's good. It's like in everything's in perspective. I mean, after losing my brother, this is nothing. It really is.
I laughed out loud when I was doing what laughingly passes for research for this program. There's a quote attributed to you about your present predicament and your relationship with Sharon, your wife, who you referred to there. And this is what you're supposed to have said: "When we married, I was captain of England, good-looking, plenty of money, not a care in the world. Now she's married to a fat old guy, not good-looking anymore, and no money." Wow. She's obviously a very patient woman, Adam.
Oh, she loves me for other reasons. They grabbed hold of that. The media like to grab hold of
it was fun, isn't it?
Quotes and make out I'm curled up crying in the corner, like in the gutter or something like that.
No.
And that's their job. And I'm happy for that to go on, because just watch the space. I'll come back.
Well, let's be fair. You've also, in the middle of all of this, and we'll talk more about your family life in a second. Of course, as well as all of the property business, you've also been doing work in the media. You've invented shows for Australian television. You've appeared on loads of other things as well. Is that a part of your life that you still enjoy?
Yeah. No, I created a show out here called Australia's Greatest Athlete, which was highly successful and ran for 3 seasons out here. That was fun. It was just a little something which I did on the side from property. It was never really a major thing for me. It was just a little sort of project on the side. And there's a few other little things here and there which I've got into, and they've fallen by the wayside now. At the moment, I'm just enjoying fighting. I'm enjoying competing. I'm enjoying I do charity work.
Tell us, if you can, pretty briefly about your charity work.
Yeah, well, there's I've got 2 days which are on out here. One's a golf day and the other one's a cricket day, and they run annually, and it's to support a charity out here called Paradise Kids, which are very similar to the charity that I had running in England called my Ben Holioake Fund, which was a charity which we did over there to raise money for kids with terminal illness there.
And if is there any website or anything where people can go and see what you're doing?
One's called cricketchallenge.com .au, and the other one's called battleofthestars.com.au. So they're just 2 days which I run out here, and they give money to a charity called Paradise Kids, which is a local kids charity.
Thank you for that. That's okay. We've come full circle now. You've mentioned, Sharon, you've got 3 kids. You live on the Gold Coast of Australia, which, if I just looking at the tourist brochures, looks pretty beautiful. Tell us where you are now in your life, Adam, currently, and if you like to as well, look forward a bit for us. What do you hope for the future for you and your family?
I think the first thing I hope for is just that we remain healthy, and I think when you've been through circumstances like I've experienced, like losing my best friend in a car accident, and then my brother in a car accident, I think the simple things you just don't take them for granted anymore. So number one thing is the health of my wife and my kids, and my friends. I've made some dear friends out of this who've stood by me through some really hard times. So number one thing is for them to stay healthy, and then number two is to start, rebuilding my life. Start rebuilding financially. That is, I mean, financially, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself to try and make money and stuff like that, or you can just try and reduce your desires. I don't have big desires. I don't want a jet. I don't want a boat. I don't want any of those things. I'm just quite happy going along and creating a life where I've got enough time to spend with my children and hopefully have a little bit of time to enjoy some stuff myself. So that's really what the future holds. At the moment, I'm achieving that. So and that doesn't require huge amounts of money to be able to do that, because I'm not that flashy a person. But I've got some ideas for business in the future, and like I said, I've been in worse positions, 100 times worse positions, and I've always enjoyed the battle of coming back. So for me, it's just a great challenge and just relishing the opportunity to get into it.
I don't like cricket.